Now it's time to go through and do some dividing with 2 digits. It's the same process, but it can be a little bit more challenging just because you have some larger numbers that you're multiplying and dividing with. Alright, so let's get started right away. I think it's a good idea to go ahead and do some estimating, so you look at your answer and see if it's going to make sense when you get done. 67 is quite close to 70, so when I started with the problem, I would just say 70, and I start thinking about those multiples of 70 that would get really close to 5,292. So start thinking about 70, 140, 210, 280, 350, 420, 490. That's not too far away from 529 if I was to take these first 3 digits. The next would be 560. So both of those are fairly close. I'll just choose 490 for right now. Now I don't want to just get close to 529. I'd like to get close to 5,292. So I would actually add another 0. So I have 4,900, which is fairly close to 5,292. Too big to go into 4. Too big to go into 490. 7, and then you have one more digit, so you would add a 0. So I should get an answer that's quite close to 70 when I get done. So as I look at 67, I look at into 5. It's way too large to go into 5, so I put a 0 there. 67 into 52, again, it's too large to go into 52. It's bigger than 52. And so when I get to the third, the hundredths place, now it's time for me to think about, can I get into there? Get rid of that. Looks like a decimal point almost. Alright, so now I look at 67 into 529. Now, because of the estimating that I did over here, I'm going to be doing the same type of thing. You know, I would have said that's pretty close to 70, and I would start working my way through. Because of this estimating that I've done, I know I'm going to choose 7 here, because 7 times 70 would be 490, which is quite close to 529. To find out if I'm correct or not, I actually do the problem just on the side. I go 67 multiply times 7. 7 times 7 is 49. And 7 times 6 is 42. And 4 more is 46. So I've got 469. 9 minus 9 is 0. Can't do this. 2 minus 6. So I do a regrouping here. Change that to a 4. 12. 12 minus 6 is 60. As I look at that, I'm right on, because if I was to have a number that was larger than 67, I would know that I would need to increase this. But that worked out just fine, so I'm going to put a 7 there. Again, if I would have ended up with a number larger than 67, I would bump that up to 8, because I can do more. If it would have been exactly 67, again, I would have bumped it up to 8. But since it's a number that's smaller than 67, I leave it just like it is. Alright, time for me to bring down my 2. Now, if I was to put a 7 up here again, I would get 469. But that isn't very close to 602. I can actually go larger. So I'm not going to start down at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. I'm going to start at 7 and work my way up until I get one that is close to 602. Alright, so I could say 560. That would be my next multiple of 70. And then 630. That would be my next multiple of 70. So this would be 8. And this would be 9. It looks to me like that's a little bit too large. So I'm going to just try an 8. So 67 times 8. I get 656. 48 plus 5 more, 536. So let's give that a try. 536. 2 minus 6 I can't do, so I'm going to do a little regrouping here. That actually didn't have anything for me to group from, so I have to go all the way back to the 6, change that to a 5, change that into a 10, and then I can borrow from it to make a 9. 12 minus 6 is 6, 9 minus 3 is 6, and I do end up with a smaller number here, so that was the right decision. So I'm ready to give my answer here in a certain form. 78 remainder 66. That would be an acceptable answer. Another acceptable answer, which is kind of the next step, I usually call this like a 4th grade answer. And then a 5th grade answer would be 78 and 66 67. The 66 came from my remainder. That comes the numerator. The 67 comes from my divisor here. And that would end up being your denominator. And then this would be more of a 5th grade answer right here. Both of them are correct. This one is just taking that remainder and writing it as a fraction. And then something else that we would end up doing eventually now is taking it and putting a decimal point and zeros back here, and then actually turning this remainder into a decimal. There'd be a decimal right here, point, and then we would just continue the division process all the way through. That's something we'll do maybe with a different problem a little bit later. I think this is enough for us right now as far as we look at dividing. Let's do one more while we're at it. Let's start with a clean slate here. I've got 91. 91 is close to 90. Into something that's close to 6,455. Start thinking about that. I think 90, 180, 270, and so on, all the way through. If you know your multiplication tables well, you know you're eventually going to come to something that is 630, which is nice and close to 645. Anybody know what 90 times something will give you 630? So hopefully right now you're thinking, oh, that's 7. 90 into 6 is too large. 90 into 63 is too large. 90 into 630 is 7. And again, we're not trying to get close to 630 or 645. I want to get close to 6,455. So I would have to add another 0 here. That's 6,300, which would mean I have to have another 0 back there. It's 70. So, again, because of all this estimating I've done, I kind of have an idea where I'm starting when I get here. Way too big to go into 6, way too big to go into 64, and I'm guessing pretty close to 7 right here. So 91 times 7. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 9 is 63. 637. Can't do 5 minus 7. I have to do a regrouping. 15 minus 7 is 8. 3 minus 3 is 0. 6 minus 6 is 0. Okay, so I've handed out everything. I got a very small number, much smaller than 91. So that's good. I'm going to bring down my 5 then. And 91 into 85. I'm going to end up putting a 0 there because 91 is too large to get into 85. 70. And again, I have a remainder here. Then 91. Oops, I'm sorry. Doing my answer here. My answer would be 70 with the remainder 85. That would be a really good 4th grade answer. 70 and 85 91sts. That would be a fraction that would go ahead and show that answer. All right.